is I want to tell you all about my experience with Crimson Desert now that it's officially done. You might say, well, what do I mean? Well, I'm done with the game. I played it now for over 20 hours. I played it on launch day. I didn't really like it. You guys convinced me to go back. I played it another 15 plus hours. You know, I kept going back to the well because you guys kept asking me to, but last night it kind of finally hit the fan, if you know what I mean. And so I'll tell you why, and I'll overall summarize my time with the game here today and give you my final thoughts as we move on. So that's good, right? I mean, it's funny because some people are like, thank God he's finally done with that thing. But other people still to this day are playing it, and they're like, oh, my 150-hour experience with the game. When you listen to different people talk about this game, it's like people are playing two different games. It just really is. Some people are so infatuated and in love with the game's world, with the amount of content, with you know, just everywhere you go, you know, there's something new to do, right? And other people are just like so over it and saying it's overhyped, it's completely, you know, overpraised, that the game is just a retooled MMO, and that they don't understand how it could have sold so many million copies, except people are just dumb or ignorant or bandwagoners who love hype. And, you know, me playing the game, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. And what I mean by that is I'm in a unique position where I can understand why there's some people that absolutely love this game. Really, like, I get it. I know why some people really like it. But from my unique perspective, I don't see this being a game that for someone who makes content is something that's good for the long haul, unless you're one of these people who's so big, it doesn't matter what you play. Jay Freeze Bees did a $10 super chat, says, thank God you quit Crimson Desert because you're playing it in the most boring way possible. You're not good at combat. You play like an old boomer. Bad. Get Sushi for DSP tries it. It should be interesting. You know what's funny about people like this? All right? Every time I played Crimson Desert, people would say, you're playing it wrong. And I would say, how? Explain what innovative thing I'm supposed to be doing. What gameplay mechanic am I not understanding about the most washed, boring combat system I've ever seen in a game? What is it that I'm not doing? I'm using the stab. I'm using the shield bash. I'm using a ground pound. I'm doing combos. What am I not doing right? And every single time that I would ask that, because the only answer anyone ever gave me is, oh, well, the reason that combat, that you're not finding it rewarding is because you didn't upgrade your gear or you didn't put enough into health and stamina, which is all a lie. If you watch my playthrough, you'll see I was always upgrading my gear. I was always using the Abyss cubes to upgrade my stamina and health. And also I unlocked a bunch of combat abilities, which I was using in the combat. The difference is I'm 20 hours into Crimson Desert, and the people that really like it are 80 hours into Crimson Desert. So they grinded 60 hours to overlevel themselves so they can just steamroll the combat. So to them, they watch me play and they're like, he's getting destroyed. It's because he's so weak. Yeah, because I didn't waste a month of my life playing the game to get to that point. I was waiting for something good to happen in the first 20 hours. I just really love it. Everyone yelling at me saying it's my fault. Okay, explain how. No one can actually justify what they say about the game besides just kissing its butt blindly. All right, should we do it? Shall we get to it now? Shall we talk about Crimson Desert? I think we should. This way, you know, I can put a fork in this playthrough and we can move on. All right. Oh, Caterade. Thanks for $2. Did you watch the Mouse PI IGN review? No, I didn't. I never watch IGN reviews. I do as much as I can to stay away from them. On purpose. Thank you for $2, Caterade. What's up, Game Boy? How are you, man? Okay. All right, guys, let's do it. Let's talk about Crimson Desert. So, for the record, when Crimson Desert was announced and all the hype and hoopla around the game and its press and its, you know, productional materials and everything that hyped the game up before it came out, there was always a big question in mind. And the question was, the more you heard about Crimson Desert, the more you kept hearing about it has this and it has this, but does that mean that the game's going to have an insane amount of great content, or does it mean it's all going to be crammed in there, but it doesn't have a lot of meaning? For example, when you heard that the game was going to have this kind of combat, but then it was going to have mounts that you can ride, but then it was going to have traversal and moving around with these kind of like grappling hook floating mechanic, kind of like Tears of the Kingdom, but then it was going to have base building, but then it was going to have you know, taking on a bunch of enemies, like taking over bases, but then it was going to have RPG story elements, and then it was going to have this, and then it was going to have that. Oh, it has fishing, and it has this. When you hear that a game has so many things in it, right? You have to wonder, is it going to be a jack of all trades and a master of none situation? Or will the game feel polished and refined and actually be a good gameplay experience? So the fact that they were charging, you know, full price for the game, you had to hope that the game was going to be good. But it's made by Pearl Abyss. This is a company that's made Black Desert, which is a MMO. And so going from MMO to single-player game is a big leap. So when this game came out, I actually cleared my schedule, and I had a marathon day of playing it. My intention was to play it like 8+ hours in the first day that it came out to get a good taste of, you know, what it would be, so that I could decide if I was going to play it further or not. And if you go back and you look at that original footage from about a month ago from when the game came out, you'll see that I kind of jump into the game with the same kind of judgment that I do with any game. Is it, you know, being fair, giving it a fair chance, and immediately I'm blown away by the graphics. The game itself has really good graphics, right? I would argue that its open world is absolutely gorgeous. And the fact that it's one of those games where if you see it, you can get to it is also really neat. You know, you could traverse the top of a high mountain, or you go down into the actual Crimson Desert, and there's all these different climates and things to go to. Again, similar to, say, Tears of the Kingdom. That's probably its strongest point. And also, as the game starts to introduce these new elements to you of combat, of traversal, of puzzle solving, and things like that, the game is very interesting. Eventually, though, you get into what the gameplay loop is going to be, and you're like, this is confusing, because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing or if anything I'm doing is really meaningful. You could choose to just follow the main storyline, or you could choose to do side faction quests, or you could choose to do nothing and just walk around fighting generic enemies, exploring, solving puzzles, finding gear, leveling up, and all of that is completely valid. It really is. But for my day one experience, what ended up happening was I played for around 5 hours and I was actually enjoying myself. And then I said, all right, well, I've explored a lot, but now what I'd like to do is actually try to make progress in the game and figure out exactly what mechanics will be in things such as the combat and stuff like that, because you know that's going to be a huge part of the game, right? And so I started doing a side quest where you had to do a takeover of a giant mining camp, and there was endless amounts of respawning generic enemies that you had to kill. Once you killed enough, the camp was considered taken over, but there was also a big boss fight that you had to do at the end of this mining camp. The combat, to be honest with you, early on, is quite bad. The combat is insanely repetitive. You're just going to be murdering waves of enemies, dodging every once in a while, and then murdering more by just holding down these buttons. You don't even have to tap them to do like a combo with any kind of timing or skill. You just hold buttons, okay? So it's not rewarding. It's not fun. It's not interesting. It's actually very boring, okay? Now, on the flip side of that, when you actually encounter a boss in this game, the combat completely changes, because every single boss in this game has super armor, which means you can't just be holding down the triggers or the shoulder to do auto combos, because they're going to hit you through it. Now, in regards to fighting bosses, there's a couple different ways that you can go about defeating the bosses in the game, okay? You can either go the puzzle-solving route, or you can go the brute force route. What does that mean? Well, when you fight a boss in this game, every boss is a little bit different. For example, there's bosses that are giant brutes who basically absorb all hits and can hit you for ginormous damage. Or there's bosses who may have special abilities where they like teleport around, and every once in a while you have to find the opening to try to hit them, or maybe you have to try to parry or counter them so that you can actually strike back. So it is doable that you could learn a boss pattern and actually beat the boss. However, the bosses usually end up either being way over-leveled or under-leveled for you. Meaning, when you get to that first story boss, as long as you've been playing the game and, you know, collecting armor and leveling it up at blacksmiths and things like that, chances are the first story boss is a pushover. But then if you go to the first optional fight in the game, which would be the boss at that mining camp that I mentioned, he's insanely strong and can kill you with 2 hits. It's just kind of like, well, when you encounter a boss, hope that you've played long enough to level up your gear and stats so that you can beat it. And if not, well, if you can learn the one strategy to beat the boss, that's like solving a puzzle, good for you. And if not, well, leave, go play for another 10 to 15 hours grinding and getting items and leveling up, and then come back and just overpower the boss because now you're way more strong than he is. So that's the way you go about boss combat. And I hate to say it, it's just not satisfying in any way. Like, when you play a game that has a tough boss, what you want to be able to do is on the fly, learn the pattern of the boss, counter the pattern of the boss, overcome, win, and then it feels rewarding. That's exactly the pattern that FromSoft games use. And not to say that every FromSoft game is the same, because you got a game like Dark Souls, which plays very different than, say, a game like Bloodborne with parrying, which is very different than, say, Sekiro with the timed blocks. They're all a little different, but the idea is you get to a boss, learn the pattern, overcome, persevere. You can't really do that in Crimson Desert. To me, that's not rewarding. To me, that's like, okay, so the game didn't take the time to program in a good combat engine, and instead they gave you 2 different ways to kind of, you know, flub your way through it. But either way, you're just kind of flubbing your way through it, and you didn't really learn anything. And therefore, when you beat a boss in this game, it never feels satisfying whatsoever, and that's kind of the problem. So, as I was playing Crimson Desert, and I encountered this, and I realized this is what it was going to be, I got disappointed. Because the open world is gorgeous, the graphics are great, there's a great puzzles and interesting levels of discovery, but once you get to the combat is by far the absolute major shortcoming of the game. Why are there so many people who are saying they love Crimson Desert, right? That Crimson Desert is like game of the year contender, and oh my god, it's the best game in 100 years. Here's what I think is going on. But in my opinion, and in my 18 years as a content creator on the internet, I have kind of a unique perspective coming into this situation, all right? And I can distinctly tell you that there have been 2 different kind of time periods that I've been making content. There's the first 8 years, from 2008 to roughly around 2016-ish, and then there's been the last decade of 2016 to 2026. And I can tell you, my first 8 years as a creator, video games that were coming out were constantly innovating, constantly of high quality. They were breaking ground. They were culturally relevant, first-time, breathtaking experiences that were meaningful. And what I mean by that is I couldn't tell you how many times that there was a bold new move, that a franchise was being created, and it was something different. Mass Effect, attempting to take sci-fi, like almost like Star Trek-esque game lore, and turning it into an action-based RPG with dialogue choices that matter and actually affect the outcome of the game. Uncharted, attempting to actually make a franchise that feels like interactive Indiana Jones. I could keep going. BioShock, right? A first-person shooter that brings in innovative story elements with awesome graphics and gameplay, really unique experiences, okay? And at this era, this first 8 years that I was a creator, it was like hit after hit, banger after banger, and there were big AAA studios that you could always rely on, that when they pumped out a new iteration of a game, whether it was a new IP or a brand new spanking sequel to the game that you loved from a year or two ago, it was always good. But what's happened is times have changed. And after that 8-year, almost like gaming renaissance period, what happened was games started to try to follow formulas in order to print money. And what I mean by that is you got to look at games like Grand Theft Auto Online, you got to look at games like Fortnite, you got to look at games where they became culturally relevant, not necessarily because the games were groundbreaking or great, but simply because everyone was playing them. GTA Online doesn't really innovate that much. There were already games before GTA Online that did very similar things, and there's tons of games that tried to copy that virtual community, social experience after as well. But GTA Online has been the game over the last, at this point, almost 15 years, right? That has been the money printer for Rockstar. People keep going in, playing with their friends, buying the virtual currency, buying the virtual items in the game, spending so much, it single-handedly kept the company afloat for over a decade. And everyone else wanted to be a piece of that pie. They wanted to get that taste of the money train, okay? Take a look at Fortnite, a game that wasn't even supposed to be a battle royale game. It was supposed to be a tower defense zombie game, but they decided last minute, Epic Games that is, to change the formula to be something that bandwagoned on another genre that was already popular. And because they added in a cartoony look, crafting mechanics, and ended up getting licensing for all the big IPs out there, it became the most culturally relevant game ever, right? Fortnite is mainstream in a way that no other game has even been mainstream besides maybe Minecraft before it. So what ended up happening is, in the last decade, gamers did not get as many memorable gaming experiences as they used to. Even franchises that were tried and true hits, like I just mentioned, Mass Effect, ended up coming out with games like Mass Effect Andromeda that were watered-down versions of their former selves that tanked. Or hell, take a look at the recent Dragon Age Veilguard, a tried and true series that every game had been a hit up to then, and then this one flops, right? So that's what's happening now, is all of these big games that have been coming out recently end up being underwhelming, end up being either going in a direction people don't want because of its narrative or political reasons and agendas, right? Like culture war stuff. Or they're just not very good anymore. It seems like these big companies that used to always pump out the great experiences are a shadow of their former selves. Maybe the good employees have moved on or whatever. So when you no longer have that big, trusted amount of companies making great games, other people step up to the plate. And it's actually in the last few years, it's been indie companies that have actually stood up and started to hit it on all cylinders, right? Smaller scale indie games that have really blown it out of the water, right? Companies like making Silksong, or former devs who used to work for Ubisoft leave the company and then they go and make a big, humongous, successful game like Expedition 33. So the biggest games are not coming out of the big tried and true studios anymore. And so when you hear, oh, this company that made Black Desert, an MMO, they're going to make a single-player game, and look, it has all these elements of a game that you would want from a AAA studio, you're like, oh, I'm intrigued. Is this going to be good or not, right? And here's the thing. So many games today, you invest time and money in, and they end up being underwhelming. They end up being, it's all right, experiences. Well, I think what happened with Crimson Desert is you've got a game that, yes, you play full price, but you're going to get so much content that never do you really realize that anything you're doing in the game is very meaningful. In the 20-some hours that I played Crimson Desert, I never had a single jaw-dropping, oh my god, first time ever, culturally relevant moment. Instead, it was like, okay, so they're kind of doing this here, and they're kind of doing this there. This is from this game, this is from this game, it's taped together. And ultimately, that becomes the big question for me when I'm playing a game these days. Why am I doing this? Is there a story that's riveting, that's keeping me going? Is there a gameplay element that I'm addicted to that I want to keep going back? Because the thing is, you don't need a good story for it to be a good game. And I actually think this has been one of the big things of contention about Crimson Desert, is that people are like, well, the story sucks. And then other people, big creators, have come out and said, the game doesn't have a story. Act like it doesn't. Even though it does, act like it doesn't, because that's not the focus. The focus of the game should be the overwhelming amount of content and the world that's created in the sandbox environment. But if it's just gameplay for gameplay's sake, then that's only going to appeal to a certain kind of audience. Do you see? Because there's people who play games for different reasons. There's some people who play games for challenge. There's some people who just play games to chill. There's some people who actually are super professional about it. And there's others who just come home from work or school, they turn on their console or their PC for an hour or two a day, and they gel, right? They vibe. They're just, I'm just unplugging from the world, man. So everyone goes into gaming for something different. But ultimately, there are culturally relevant games that just seem to hit it for everyone. And I think this is the reason why Crimson Desert is like a must-play game of the year experience for some, And for others, they play it, they're like, meh, I don't get it. I really don't understand what the big deal is. The best way that I can describe it, and I know some people are going to disagree with me here, and I know that some people are actually going to be frustrated, but that's okay. We can agree to disagree. All right? I respect your opinion if you like Crimson Desert, but now please listen up to mine. When I play a game, as I get older, okay, more and more, I'm looking for an experience that's memorable, that stands out, and is worth my time, okay? For example, if I'm going to go out somewhere to eat and have a meal out with my wife, I would much prefer to go to a place where maybe it is a little more expensive, maybe it's a shorter experience, but it's high-end food. So for example, I'd rather go pay for seared halibut and a filet mignon steak and, you know, courses of good food than say, go to an all-you-can-eat buffet. For me, as I get older, my time is more valuable. I don't have time to just invest endlessly in game worlds, to sit here for 80 to 100 hours. I don't have a time when I'm playing a game and I hit a boss and I can't beat it to be told, well, you got to leave for 10 hours and grind, get better gear, level up your health, level up your stamina, then come back and fight the boss. I don't have time for that shit. I want a game to be good now. I want to have meaningful experiences now, and I want my time to feel like it's well invested. So if I'm going out to eat, I want to have the high-end gourmet experience when I'm going out and paying top dollar. Now, I could easily go over here to Old Country Buffet, and I could spend $25 and sit there eating slop all day, and it's all you can eat slop. Right? And you're going to have people, when you're at Old Country Buffet, who are going to come up to you and argue with you that all that food is good. They're going to say, dude, are you kidding me? That mac and cheese is so good. Did you have the chicken fried steak? Did you have the spaghetti? Did you have this all-you-can-eat salad? Oh, I love it. Old Country Buffet is my absolute best place to eat because it's endless amounts. To which you can say, it's true. You get insane value for your dollar when you go to Old Country Buffet and you get all you can eat. The problem is, it's all slop. It's low grade. It's not cooked well. It's not gourmet. It's just heat lamp food. It's a bunch of meaningless heat lamp food. It still fills your guts, but it's not necessarily good for you. If you go to the gourmet restaurant, it may be more expensive, and it may be a shorter experience. You're going to eat less, for sure, but you're going to be getting actual handcrafted, well-designed, refined experience. You're going to get flavors and things that are going to pique your interest, and it's going to be once in a lifetime that you get to taste that. And that's what gaming used to be. When you went and you bought a big AAA game that was $60, you were getting a handcrafted, high-end, top-of-the-line gaming experience. Something that was meant to be relevant, that you would remember forever in your mind as a gaming memory that would stay with you. A game that you would then later on compare other games to and say, did it live up to this previous game that I've played? The problem is there's so few of those gaming experiences in the modern day, people forgot what good games are. For so many people, a good game is simply a game with a lot of content. Oh, I spent $70 on Crimson Desert, and I can spend 200 hours in this gaming world. Okay, what's your favorite point of the story? In fact, when you ask people, what is it that you like about Crimson Desert? Most people don't have a definitive answer. They just say, oh, well, I keep discovering new things and there's more content. Okay, but what exactly is it about the game that is resonating with you besides the fact that you have so much content for the dollar? Again, you went to Old Country Buffet, you spent the flat rate, you're getting unlimited amounts of content, but it's slop. It's not coherent. It's not meaningful. It doesn't hold a candle to the good games of yesteryear. But hey, you got a lot of value for your dollar. You didn't get ripped off. Hey, the game isn't trying to hit you with a ton of microtransactions or season passes or stupid scheduled releases that keep you coming back and spending more money. So therefore, the game's just good, right? Yeah, but okay, I get that. And there's going to be people that's all they're looking for. When they spend money on a game, all they want is endless content that they can go back to and say, the value is there. And I'll agree with you. The value is there with Crimson Desert. There's so much to do in the game. But if none of it is coherent, if none of it is meaningful, because as people say, well, it doesn't really have a good or meaningful story, then why are you playing it? Simply to kill time? You can have actual IRL hobbies rather than just sitting in a virtual world of Crimson Desert for 2 hours, and they could result in actual real-life skills and improvements to your actual life rather than sitting in this virtual one, okay? Just being honest, there's things you can do better with your time than spend 200 hours in Crimson Desert to then say, I'm done with the game, and say, well, I don't remember any of it. And I think this is what a lot of people have lost in modern society. I found something to waste my time on. Hey, look, it's a mobile game. And trust me, I know a lot about spending time and wasting time and money in mobile games, so I'm an authority on this one. Crimson Desert is the slop of modern gaming. Now, here's the thing. There's an audience for it, and that's okay. Millions of people have bought it, and that's fine. But if you say that Crimson Desert is a Game of the Year contender over a handcrafted gaming experience that has a story, that has meaningful, groundbreaking content in it, you're actually doing the industry a disservice. And the reason is because when everyone jumps on a bandwagon, the industry follows because it chases the money. All right? I want you to take a look at Grand Theft Auto Online, and I want you to take a look at Fortnite and how the success of those two games has single-handedly changed the direction of the gaming industry in the last 10 plus years. How every major AAA company is now chasing the games as a service model. All right? Now, to be honest, the model is collapsing on itself. It's not working anymore. So now you have a game like Crimson Desert that comes along. No real story, Nothing really excels whatsoever. In fact, most of the game is straight up lifted from other games and just glued and taped together. It really is an all-you-can-eat experience, but it's all slop. But everyone praises it. And if you don't like the game, you've got major creators coming out and telling you you're doing it wrong. How dare you not like Crimson Desert? How dare you approach it with the same criteria and judgments of quality that you would apply to other games? You are wrong. You should be liking it simply because it has so much quantity. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I just like better things. Maybe I realize I'm getting older and I don't have time to waste on shit that doesn't have a meaning behind it anymore. I want more memorable experiences and I want more useful use of my time because as I get older, I have less of it left. I don't have time to spend 200 hours in Crimson Desert when I can play 5 to 6 other games in that time frame that I'll have more memorable experiences with. But the point I'm making here is, if we act like Crimson Desert is the best game of all time, you will get 400 more games that are insane amounts of content and none of it meaningful. You're going to get 20 more GTA Onlines and 30 more Fortnite clones because that's how the industry follows. They chase the money. So seeing that this game sold millions and millions of copies, everyone's going to follow suit. Oh, get another slop game out there. Slap everything together. Look, we have everything too. We have everything too. Play our game. Buy our game. That's how they work. None of these companies have creativity anymore. They follow the money. So if that's the case and if that's what you want, go for it. Kiss the game's butt. Say it's the best game ever. But I'm warning you, consequences have actions, pimp. If you say Crimson Desert is so good, you have to understand that's going to actually change the industry opinion on what's good in a game. I'm sorry, but for 8 years, I had these groundbreaking games all the time that I loved. And now for the last 10, they all kind of went away. Well, I don't want the industry to change for the worse because we all want to keep eating at Old Country Buffet rather than eating a 5-star Michelin star gourmet meal over here that's a life-changing experience. And for the record, it's for the same price tag. $70 game here, $70 game there. I'd much rather play a 12 to 20-hour game that's a resonating, once-in-a-lifetime experience that's truly original than play a 200-hour slop game that costs the same amount of money. That's my opinion.